Emma Thompson rushed into the crowded courtroom, her heart racing. She was 30 minutes late. The room fell silent as Judge William Bennett looked down at her from his high bench. His gray eyes were cold behind his glasses. "Miss Thompson," Judge Bennett said in a stern voice, "you are 30 minutes late to my courtroom." Emma stood tall in her neat black suit. "I apologize, Your Honor." "This court's time is valuable," the judge continued. "Your tardiness shows disrespect for this institution and everyone present." He tapped his fingers on the wooden desk. "I'm imposing a fine of £500. Several people in the courtroom gasped quietly. The fine was unusually high for a simple tardiness. Emma took a deep breath. She had spent all night preparing for this case, helping a young boy who had been wrongfully held at the police station. Her client, a nervous woman named Mary, sat in the front row. Mary's hands shook as she clutched her purse. She couldn't afford to lose this case. "Your Honor, I accept the fine," Emma said calmly. "However, I would like to explain that I was delayed while helping my client who was wrongfully held at the police station." Judge Bennett waved his hand dismissively. "Save your explanations, Ms. Thompson. This court doesn't have time for excuses. Pay the clerk on your way out." Next case. Emma gathered her papers, trying to hide her frustration. This wasn't just about her. It was about Mary, who was about to lose her home. It was about the community center where Mary's children went after school, which was facing closure. As Emma turned to go back to her seat, she noticed a small photograph on the judge's desk. It was partly hidden behind a stack of papers, but she could see it was a picture of a woman with a warm smile. Something about the woman seemed familiar, but Emma couldn't place her. Judge Bennett watched Emma walk back to her seat. Something about the young lawyer bothered him. She wasn't like the other lawyers who appeared in his courtroom. There was no fear in her eyes, only determination. And something else, something that reminded him of someone. The rest of the day passed slowly. Emma presented her case well, despite the rough start. Judge Bennett listened with his usual stern expression, occasionally asking sharp questions. When court finished for the day, Emma stayed behind to organize her notes for tomorrow. "You did well today, despite being late," a voice said. Emma looked up to see an older woman with kind eyes standing beside her table. "Thank you," Emma replied. "I'm hoping Judge Bennett will see reason and rule in our favor tomorrow." The woman smiled. "William can be stubborn, but he believes in justice. I'm Margaret, by the way. Nice to meet you. I'm Emma Thompson." "I know who you are," Margaret said. "I've heard good things about your work with the community center. That's why I came to watch today." Emma felt a spark of hope. "You know about our case?" "I volunteer at the center 3 days a week," Margaret explained. "Those children need that place. Especially Mary's kids." Emma nodded. "That's why I'm fighting so hard. But Judge Bennett doesn't seem very sympathetic." Margaret's eyes twinkled. "Don't judge him too harshly. He wasn't always so rigid." As they talked, Emma noticed the judge leaving his chambers. He was putting on his coat, no longer wearing his formal robes. He looked different somehow, more human. Judge Bennett spotted them and froze. His face paled slightly. "Margaret," he called. "What are you doing here?" The older woman turned and smiled warmly at him. "Hello, dear. I came to watch an important case about our community center." Emma looked between them, confused. Then suddenly she understood why the woman in the photograph had seemed familiar. "You two know each other?" Emma asked, although she already knew the answer. "William Bennett is my husband," Margaret said, placing her hand on Emma's shoulder. "And this is Emma Thompson, Will. The lawyer I told you about who's helping us save the community center." Judge Bennett's face showed shock, then understanding, then something that looked like shame. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The three of them stood in awkward silence as the empty courtroom seemed to hold its breath. That evening, William Bennett sat at his kitchen table, pushing food around his plate. The chicken that Margaret had cooked, normally his favorite, tasted like cardboard. Margaret was being unusually quiet, the only sound between them the occasional clink of cutlery against plates. "You didn't tell me you were working with the community center case," William finally said, breaking the silence. Margaret put down her fork. "I've been talking about the community center for months, Will. I mentioned Emma Thompson by name last week when she agreed to help us." William frowned, trying to remember. Had she mentioned it? He'd been so busy with his cases lately, working late, bringing files home. Maybe he hadn't been listening properly. "The fine was too much," Margaret said quietly. "Emma works for almost nothing on most of these cases. She believes in helping people." William felt a knot forming in his stomach. "I didn't know. That's the problem, isn't it?" Margaret's voice wasn't angry, just sad. "You don't really know what's happening in people's lives before they step into your courtroom." William thought about Emma Thompson's dignified stance as he'd find her. How many other people had he judged unfairly? "What can you tell me about her?" he asked. Margaret's expression softened. "She grew up in one of the poorest parts of the city. Got a scholarship to university. Could have gone to work for a big firm making loads of money, but instead she chose to help people who can't afford good lawyers." William pushed his plate away. "And the boy at the police station?" "Oliver Jones. 16 years old. The police stopped him for looking suspicious while he was walking home from our center. Emma spent the morning getting him released." Margaret reached across the table and took his hand. "Will, what happened to you? You used to care about these things." William didn't answer. He couldn't explain how years of seeing the worst of people had hardened something inside him. How it was easier to see rules broken than to see the people breaking them. "I'm going for a walk," he said, standing up abruptly. Outside, the evening air was cool. William walked without direction, his mind replaying the moment in court when he'd dismissed Emma's explanation. Had he become so cold? So quick to judge? He found himself walking toward the community center without planning to. It was still open, lights shining from the windows. Through the glass, he could see children playing basketball, others sitting at tables doing homework. William stopped, watching from the street. A figure appeared beside him. "It's a special place, isn't it?" He turned to find Emma Thompson standing there, a stack of papers under her arm. "Miss Thompson," he said awkwardly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I come every evening to help with homework club," she explained. "And please, it's Emma. We're not in court now." William nodded. "Emma, I want to apologize for today." "You don't need to." "I do," he interrupted. "I was unfair. And I'd like to make it right." Emma studied his face. "Why are you here, Judge Bennett?" "William, please." He looked back at the center. "I'm here because I realized I've been making judgments without understanding the full picture." Through the window, they could see a small boy helping a younger child with a book. "That's Oliver," Emma said quietly. "The boy who was detained this morning. He volunteers as a reading buddy for the younger kids." William felt a painful twist in his chest. Oliver couldn't be more than 16, his face still holding the softness of childhood. And William had dismissed Emma's explanation of helping him as a mere excuse. "Would you like to come inside?" Emma asked. "Meet some of the people you'll be deciding the fate of tomorrow?" William hesitated. Judges didn't normally interact with people involved in their cases outside the courtroom. But nothing about this situation was normal. "Yes," he said finally. "I would." As Emma led him toward the entrance, William realized something important was happening. For the first time in years, he was stepping beyond the bench, beyond the robes, beyond his role as a judge. He was stepping into the lives of the people he judged. And he was terrified by what he might find, not about them, but about himself. The community center buzzed with activity as William stepped inside. Children of different ages filled the rooms, some playing games, others reading books, and many doing homework at tables. The walls were covered with colorful artwork and motivational posters. Judge Bennett? A small voice made William turn. It was Oliver, the boy Emma had helped that morning. He stood nervously, a book clutched to his chest. "Hello, Oliver," William said, feeling strangely uncomfortable. He was used to people addressing him from a distance, with formal respect. Not face to face like this. "Are you here to close us down?" Oliver asked directly. Emma put a gentle hand on Oliver's shoulder. "The judge is here to learn more about the center before making his decision tomorrow." William nodded. "That's right. I want to understand what happens here." Oliver's face brightened. "I can show you. I've been coming here since I was 7. For the next hour, William followed Oliver and Emma through the center. He saw the small library where older children helped younger ones with reading. He visited the kitchen where volunteers taught cooking classes. He watched teenagers in a small recording studio, creating music with second-hand equipment. "This is where I learned to read properly," Oliver explained, showing William a small reading corner. "My mom works 2 jobs, so she couldn't help much. Miss Mary, she runs this place, she sat with me every day until I got better." William thought of the case files on his desk. Mary Wilson was listed simply as the defendant, a woman fighting to keep this place open against a property developer who wanted to build luxury flats. He hadn't thought about what that really meant. "And what happened this morning?" William asked quietly. "With the police?" Oliver looked down. "I was walking here early to help set up the breakfast club. The police stopped me, said someone had reported a suspicious person. They didn't believe I was going to volunteer." His voice faltered. "If Miss Thompson hadn't come, I don't know how long they would have kept me there." William felt shame wash over him. He had dismissed Emma's explanation so easily. "Judge Bennett?" A woman's voice called from across the room. Mary Wilson walked toward them, her expression a mixture of surprise and worry. "Is everything all right?" "Mrs. Wilson," William nodded. "I'm just visiting. Getting to know the center." Mary's eyes narrowed slightly. "Is this allowed? With the case still ongoing?" "Probably not," William admitted. "But I realized I couldn't make a fair judgment without seeing this place for myself." Mary seemed to relax a little. "Well, since you're here, would you like some tea? We were just about to have our community dinner." The small cafeteria was filled with people of all ages. Children sat with elderly neighbors. Teenagers helped serve food. A young man in a wheelchair played guitar in the corner. "Everyone who comes here contributes something," Mary explained as they sat with plates of simple pasta. "Some teach skills, others help clean or cook. We're like a family." "How long has this place been here?" William asked. 25 years, Mary said proudly. "I started it when this neighborhood was really struggling. We've helped hundreds of children grow up with support and safety." As they ate, different people came to their table to speak with Mary. William noticed how she knew everyone's name, asked about specific details of their lives, a job interview, a sick parent, a school exam. "Your wife is one of our most dedicated volunteers," Mary told William. "Margaret runs our senior program. She never mentioned you were a judge." William smiled sadly. "We don't talk about work much these days." After dinner, William found himself in a small office with Emma and Mary, looking at photo albums and records of the center's achievements. "These are just some of our success stories," Mary said, pointing to pictures of smiling graduates. "Oliver's brother is now at university, first in his family. This girl is a doctor. This boy works for the city council." William picked up a financial report. The center operated on the smallest of budgets. Every penny was accounted for. "Why does this matter so much to you?" he asked Emma. She looked at him steadily. "Because places like this changed my life. I grew up in a center just like this one. Someone believed in me, helped me see beyond my circumstances." She paused. "Everyone deserves that chance, don't they? As William left the center that night, he knew he would not sleep well. The faces of the people he'd met swirled in his mind, replacing the abstract concept of the community center case with something much more real and human. For the first time in years, William felt the weight of judgment as it should be felt, as a profound responsibility to real people, not just to the law. William arrived at the courthouse early the next morning. His usual coffee sat untouched on his desk as he opened Emma Thompson's case file again. He read through every document with fresh eyes, seeing details he had missed before. The property developer, Riverside Holdings, had offered to buy the community center building for much less than its value. When Mary Wilson refused to sell, they found a legal loophole involving an old lease agreement. It was clever legal work. It was also deeply unfair. A knock on his chamber door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," William called. His clerk, Richard, entered with a concerned expression. "Sir, there's something you should know. Mr. Parker from Riverside Holdings was just seen entering Judge Crawford's office." William frowned. "Judge Crawford isn't handling this case." "No, sir." Richard hesitated. "But he's golfing partners with Mr. Parker. And he's your supervisor for judicial reviews this year." The implication was clear. If William ruled against Riverside Holdings, it could affect his career. Judge Crawford had influence over promotions and assignments. "Thank you, Richard," William said quietly. "Court starts in 30 minutes, yes?" "Yes, sir." Richard paused at the door. "Sir, if I may. My nephew goes to that community center. It's a good place." After Richard left, William sat in silence. For years, he had prided himself on being a strict but fair judge. But had he really been fair? Or had he simply followed the path of least resistance, enforcing rules without questioning if they were just? The courtroom filled quickly that morning. William spotted Margaret sitting near the back, her face tense with worry. Mary Wilson sat beside her lawyer, Emma, both looking tired but determined. On the other side, Riverside Holdings had 3 expensive lawyers in perfect suits. Mr. Parker, the company owner, sat confidently behind them. As William entered and everyone stood, he noticed something unusual. The public seating area was packed with people he recognized from the community center: elderly folks from Margaret's senior program, teenagers like Oliver, parents, and volunteers. "Before we begin," William said after settling into his seat, "I want to address something. It has come to my attention that I may have a conflict of interest in this case." Murmurs filled the courtroom. Emma looked up sharply. "My wife volunteers at the community center in question," William continued. "Additionally, I visited the center myself last evening to better understand its function in the community." Mr. Parker leaned forward to whisper urgently to his lawyers. One of them stood immediately. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We request that you recuse yourself from this case and that it be reassigned to another judge." William nodded. That would be the standard procedure. However, after careful consideration of court schedules and the urgent nature of this eviction case, a reassignment would delay proceedings by at least 6 weeks. He looked directly at the Riverside lawyer. "During which time, I am issuing a temporary stay on all eviction proceedings against the community center." The lawyer's mouth opened in surprise. "But Your Honor." "Furthermore," William continued, "I am ordering a complete review of the original lease agreement, with particular attention to amendments made in 1998 that Riverside Holdings has based their case upon." Emma was trying to hide a smile. Mary Wilson looked confused but hopeful. "Your Honor," the Riverside lawyer tried again, "this is inappropriate given your admitted connection to—" "What would be inappropriate," William interrupted firmly, "would be failing to disclose that connection. I have done so openly. Now, shall we proceed with today's hearing, or would Riverside Holdings prefer the 6-week delay with the stay of eviction in place?" The lawyer conferred quickly with Parker, whose face had turned an unhealthy shade of red. "We will proceed," the lawyer said stiffly. For the next 3 hours, William listened as both sides presented their arguments. But this time, when Emma spoke about the impact of losing the center, William truly heard her. When she questioned the validity of the lease amendments, pointing out irregularities in the paperwork. He paid close attention. And when she finished her argument by simply saying, "This isn't just about property law. It's about people's lives," William found himself nodding. "The court will recess until tomorrow morning, when I will deliver my ruling," William announced. As people filed out of the courtroom, William noticed Judge Crawford standing at the back, his face unreadable. Margaret caught William's eye and gave him a small, proud smile. That night, William sat at his desk at home, writing his judgment with careful attention to every legal detail. He knew that whatever he decided, it needed to be solidly grounded in law. Not just because it was right, but because it would likely be appealed. For the first time in years, William felt the true weight and purpose of his role as a judge, not just to enforce rules, but to deliver justice. The courtroom was completely silent as William entered the next morning. Every seat was filled. News of the unusual case had spread, bringing reporters and curious onlookers. William noticed Judge Crawford sitting in the back row, his expression stern. William took his seat and placed his written judgment on the bench before him. He looked out at the faces watching him. Emma Thompson sitting straight back beside Mary Wilson, the Riverside Holdings lawyers looking confident, Margaret in the back, her hands clasped tightly together. "Before I deliver my judgment," William began, "I want to thank both sides for their arguments yesterday. This case has made me think deeply about the purpose of our legal system." He paused, looking directly at the Riverside team. "The law is clear that property rights must be respected," he continued. "Riverside Holdings has presented documentation showing they have technical legal grounds for this eviction." Mr. Parker smiled slightly. His lawyers sat forward, ready to accept their victory. However, William's voice grew stronger. "The law also requires that contracts be entered into with good faith and proper procedure." He held up a document. The court ordered an overnight examination of the original lease documents. The expert report indicates that the 1998 amendments, upon which Riverside bases its entire case, show clear signs of document tampering. The signatures do not match earlier documents, and the paper testing suggests the amendments were created much more recently than 1998. Gasps filled the courtroom. Mr. Parker's smile vanished. "In light of this finding, I am ruling in favor of the community center. The eviction notice is invalid." William struck his gavel firmly. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Crown Prosecution Service for investigation of possible fraud charges against Riverside Holdings." The community center supporters erupted in cheers. Mary Wilson covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking with relief. Emma remained composed, but her eyes shone with unshed tears. "Order," William called, tapping his gavel again. "I have one more matter to address." The room quieted. "Miss Thompson, please approach the bench." Emma walked forward, looking uncertain. "Regarding the £500 fine I imposed on you for tardiness." William cleared his throat. "That fine is rescinded. This court owes you an apology for not allowing you to explain your circumstances." Emma nodded, a small smile forming. "Thank you, Your Honor." "This court is adjourned," William announced, striking his gavel one final time. As people began to file out, celebrating and talking excitedly, William noticed Judge Crawford pushing through the crowd toward him. William braced himself for a confrontation. "Bennett," Crawford said when he reached the bench, his voice low. "That was quite a performance." "It wasn't a performance," William replied evenly. "It was justice." Crawford studied him for a long moment. "The Chief Justice will want to speak with you about your methods." "I'll be happy to explain my reasoning," William said, gathering his papers. Crawford surprised him with a small nod. "Good. We need more of that around here." Then he turned and walked away. Outside the courthouse, William found Margaret waiting for him. Without speaking, she wrapped her arms around him in a tight hug. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Over her shoulder, William saw Emma and Mary surrounded by happy community center members. Oliver was there too, grinning widely. "Judge Bennett," Mary called, waving him over. "Please, come join us. We're having a celebration at the center tonight." You and Margaret must come. That evening, the community center was transformed. Colorful streamers hung from the ceiling. Tables were filled with homemade food. Music played as children and adults danced together in the main hall. William stood by the wall, watching the celebration with a warm feeling in his chest. Emma approached, offering him a cup of punch. "Not bad for a stuffy old judge," she said with a smile. William laughed. "I deserve that." "No," Emma shook her head. "What you deserve is thanks. You risked your professional reputation today." "I just followed the law," William said. "We both know there were other interpretations you could have chosen." Emma looked around at the celebrating people. "You chose the one that served justice, not just the rules." Across the room, William saw Margaret teaching some children a dance. She caught his eye and blew him a kiss. "You know," William said thoughtfully, "I've been thinking about starting a legal clinic. Volunteer work for people who can't afford lawyers. Would the center have space for something like that?" Emma's eyes lit up. "We'd make space." "Are you serious?" "Very." William smiled. "I think it's time I remembered why I became a judge in the first place. Not to enforce rules, but to help people find justice." As the celebration continued around them, William felt something he hadn't experienced in years: the simple joy of being part of a community, of making a difference that went beyond words on paper. He had rediscovered the heart of justice, and it was beating strongly in this room full of people whose lives would continue to flourish because he had found the courage to truly see them.